So welcome to another edition of the Deals for Dentists podcast. And today we have Rich Madow, and he's zooming in from Baltimore, Maryland. Thanks so much for joining us.
It is my pleasure, Eric. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
So you can go to dealsfordentist.com, and Rich is going to have a free downloadable book called The Profitable Dental Scheduling. So that sounds great. So it's going to be full of fantastic practice building advice. So thanks for joining us. So tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got into dentistry and your whole kind of your dental journey. How did this all happen?
It's a weird journey. I'm actually a dentist, so I'll make that clear right from the start. I graduated dental school in 1984 from University of Maryland, did a fantastic residency at Mount Sinai Medical Center in Miami Beach, came back up to the Baltimore area, and after a few horrible, screwed up associateships, which I'm sure most people can relate to, I purchased actually a bankrupt practice that had a for sale sign on it. Can you imagine? There was a dental office treating patients, and it had a sign on the door that said dental practice for sale. So I knew something was wrong there. So I went in and purchased this practice, which was actually near bankruptcy. They had what I would call negative cash flow. The dentist wasn't making any money. I pretty much bought a bunch of beat up old equipment and a few lousy charts. And from there started to grow this practice. And it turned out to be a fantastic move. It was a great practice. I loved the area, super nice people. And within a few years, I was able to turn things around and have a super successful practice. At the same time, in another part of town, my brother Dave, who's 4 years older than I am, is a dentist as well. And he was building up his practice. And we would get together and talk about dentistry from time to time. Okay, maybe every night because we lived on the same street, and have our we didn't even realize what we were doing at the time, but they were like our own little mastermind sessions. And those led to some really great ideas, sharing our successes, sharing our failures. One thing, now again, remember this was back in the 80s, so things were different. Every dentist had problems with patients not paying. In those days, you would treat a patient and send a bill. And if the patient wanted to pay, they would. If they didn't want to pay, they didn't. It was very frustrating. So we actually designed this collection form, a piece of paper, a business form. It was very serious. It said statement of delinquency in huge red letters. And we made it so it was that old school kind of NCR paper where you write on the top copy and the bottom copy gets automatically copied to. And it has that look like when you send that bottom copy to someone, they know there's a top copy floating around somewhere. So it's kind of scary and threatening. And we sent these out, and our patients paid like crazy. It was unbelievable. So we started sharing it with our friends who were dentists, and they loved it. And we decided to form a little kitchen table business selling this one product, this one collection form. So we rented a P.O. box, used an old pickup truck. It was a true kitchen table business. And if we made any money, we pooled the profits into more and more mailings to let dentists across the country know about this collection form. And within about a year, we had 30,000 dental practices utilizing our forms. And somehow other people found out about it. We had funeral homes and florists, and it was just crazy. So that was kind of the start of our business, the start of the Madow Center. We called it Creative Management Resources in those days. So that led to some notoriety, and I started submitting some articles to the dental journals, Dental Economics, et cetera, and they were very well reviewed. That led to actually starting our own dental newsletter called the Richards Report, which had tens of thousands of subscribers at our peak. I'm giving you a very abbreviated version. That led to being asked to speak at seminars, which, just everything blossomed. Now, 30 years later, speaking at all across the country at all the major meetings. We actually had our own dental convention for 25 years, which some of your listeners may have come to. It was called TBSE in Las Vegas. And of course, all along the way, we've been helping other practices through our coaching and consulting programs, very personalized and one-on-one, just helping other dentists create the practice of their dreams. It's funny. A lot of dentists contact us and they have different things they want to talk about, whether it's new patients or treatment plan acceptance. But one thing that's been constant, every dentist wants to increase their practice revenue and enjoy dentistry more. So that's what we're focused on. When we work with a practice, we help the dentist earn more money, and we help the dentist and the team enjoy what they're doing more. That was my very abbreviated version of how I got involved in not just being a dentist, but helping other dentists as well. And it's been a blast.
Now, I think you nailed it right there. And, every dentist wants to make more money. and be happier. And sometimes those things don't go hand in hand. So, making more money doesn't always mean you're happier. There's a lot more that goes into the dental office, with the culture and, the systems and to make you happy. And I want to ask you about that later. So can you go back to your associateships and why those didn't work out for you, or what happened there before you ended up purchasing that bankrupt practice?
Sure. I had two somewhat long-term associateships and a few others that aren't even worth mentioning. But my first one, the dentist was actually a good dentist clinically, but he had no people skills, was not a leader of his office, and he was a terrible cheapskate, which was the worst thing. So, for example, I thought I knew everything coming out of my residency. I was a hot shot, but as you know, you really know nothing until until you're 5, 6 years down the road of experience. So I thought I knew everything, but it became pretty clear that I needed some help, and I talked to him about it. And he said, "Okay, let's sign up for some courses. Let's go to some great courses together." So fantastic. So he said, "I'm going to take you to this perio course." I was all excited. Then I see the courses coming up in like a week. I said, "Hey," I won't mention his name. We'll call him Joe. I said, "Hey, Joe, I see that perio course is coming up, but I haven't heard anything about it." He said, "Well, I'm going to take the course, then I'll come back and I'll tell you what I've learned." Because he was too cheap to pay for my tuition, and I really couldn't afford it. So he takes the course, comes back. I said, "Hey, so Joe, what'd you learn in the course?" He said, "Well, I learned that I'm doing everything right." That's what he had to offer me. Then, like a week later, I noticed there was a patient that I had treatment planned a crown on his schedule. And I walked in, I see him treating this patient. I pulled him over and said, "Joe, that was my patient. What was he doing on your schedule?" And he said, "Well, the patient had periodontal disease and you shouldn't have treatment planned him for the crown yet." Thinking, well, that's why we were supposed to go to this course together. And I'm not saying I'm proud of this. Looking back on it, it was a pretty bad thing to do, but I just walked out right then and there. I had a schedule full of patients. I just said, this guy's a jerk. This isn't for me. And I walked out. My second associateship was in a very blue collar part of Baltimore, which I really enjoyed. We did a lot of extractions, a lot of dentures. We did some crown and bridge and some more sophisticated things, but it was basically a blue collar practice, tons of emergencies. It was like a second residency. I learned how to get fast, pick up my speed, do some good treatment planning. It was the kind of practice where patients would actually line up in the morning because they were in pain and they were just lining to be seen as an emergency patient that morning. So I remember one day, I was, going along, having a good old time. The owner, Dennis, was doing the same. And after hours, I just approached him because I wanted to make some changes in the practice. Again, I thought I was the new hot shot, and I made some suggestions to him. He didn't take too kindly to it, and things got a little heated. We had a little bit of an argument, and we just both left. So the next morning, I'm the first guy in. I'm the guy that's supposed to open up. I go there, pull up my car. There are a bunch of patients lined up. It was so funny. I mean, it was like an old cartoon. They'd have like the sheets tied around their heads and biting on things. It was bizarre. It was a great scene. So I went to put my key in the door, went to turn the key. My key wasn't working. I'm thinking, what's going on here? Finally, I figured out what happened. The guy fired me, but he was such a wuss, he couldn't tell me to my face. So he changed the lock in the middle of the night. I swear this is true. And that's how he fired me. I'm just looking at the patients and saying, I think my key doesn't work. Let me go find a locksmith. And I just drove off into the sunset and never returned. So those are my two bad associateships. But it was pretty scary being unemployed, having to look for a practice. My young married with two young kids, and it was just a scary time in my life. But I took my time, found what I thought was the right practice, and fortunately, it all worked out well.
Yeah, while you were telling those stories, I was smiling, but it's not because, I was laughing. I just understand the situation. And I think so many dentists out there get what you went through and probably had similar experiences as associates. We come out of dental school and we're just raw, and we need that leadership and mentorship, and we're like sponges. And it's so disappointing when you come out and you don't get that leadership. Or I had similar experiences where patients were taken out of my schedule and put in the owner's schedule. Supplies weren't ordered because they were too cheap to order them. My one of my
I got to tell you about that. This is the most amazing. Well, I don't know. I thought it was pretty unbelievable. At the first practice, the real cheapskate, I was doing some surgeries, and I had them on my schedule, and I couldn't find the sterile sutures. And I said, Joe, where are the sutures? And he said, well, sterile sutures are too expensive. He said, I just use that spool of thread up there. I swear, he had a spool of black thread, and that's what I was supposed to use for my sutures. I mean, what are people thinking?
I know, it's crazy. Yeah, my one of my first associateships, I actually had to take him to small claims court because he didn't pay me, and I worked there for
Wow.
about 2 months, and I don't even think I got paid. And he was such a shyster, and he had done it, to many others. I mean, it's just, come on, treat people fairly. If you have some young associate, take them under your wing, mentor them, treat them right, pay them what they're supposed to be paid. I mean, it's simple. But some of these, some of these owners out there, they get competitive, or they get worried that you're going to take their patients. I mean, or they expect you to bring patients in when that's not an associate's job. So yeah, I think a lot of dentists can relate to what you went through. um, and then, so when you bought the practice that was bankrupt, um, were you out of work for a while, and then you finally found this practice, and then did it take you a while to build it up? Can you tell us through that process?
Sure. I was out of work for a while. I don't know, a month or two. It's all, all those bad memories kind of fade away. Fortunately, you remember the good times. But I was definitely out of work for a little bit. Um, I bought the practice. I couldn't really afford it. My dad was so kind that he had a banker friend that he had a great relationship with, and he actually had to co-sign the note, which I kind of felt a little pressure because I didn't think that my dad could afford to pay this note if I defaulted on it. I didn't really know. So I did feel some extra pressure to make the practice succeed. But yeah, I didn't want to rush things. I moved and I really concentrated on trying to become kind of a part of the neighborhood. When I didn't have patients, I'd go around and introduce myself to people. I made sure that I did all my errands, banking, dry cleaning, all these simple things, carry out pizza, everything in that neighborhood, because I didn't live there. I lived about 25 minutes away. And I made sure I introduced myself to everyone and gave them my card. And, even I got my hair cut there, and I offered free whitening to all the people that worked in the hair salon, just all those little things. As well as doing some, a little bit of marketing, not that much though. And I really felt that even though things didn't turn around right away, it was all those efforts that really helped me establish myself as kind of the dentist in that little small neighborhood. And then everybody kind of started coming to me. And I remember one day, maybe about 6 or 7 months in, somebody said to me, you're like the neighborhood dentist here. And I just felt so good about that because that's what I
Mm.
really wanted to do. I wasn't a dentist that did humongous cases and advertised and all, on TV and all those things. I just wanted to be the neighborhood dentist and have a all around bread and butter practice. And I learned that a practice like that can be extremely successful. So that's how it happened, somewhat organically. I think
So
being nice to people, as you said, was so important.
So that's pretty cool that you were able to do that and not live in the town that you were practicing. So you still kind of immersed yourself in the community, but then you could kind of, you get out of there at the end of the day and drive home. So I live in the town that I work in, and I was very hesitant about that initially because, I see patients in the grocery stores, the restaurants, I see them everywhere. Of course, that's one of the silver linings of COVID now is I can, wear a hat and a mask and a hood, and people don't recognize me. But they still seem to recognize me though, because, they're used
Well,
to
they're
seeing me
used to
with a
see you
mask
in a
on.
mask, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Um, but um, so I was hesitant about that initially, but as you become part of the community, my kids are in the schools, and you become like the community dentist. It just snowballs, and you meet patients, and it just that whole networking that you were talking about, immersing yourself in the community, and just being nice to people, like you said, and handing out your business card. It's such a practice builder. So that was really cool that you were able to do that and not even live in the town that you were working in. So that's pretty impressive. So then now, were you still practicing when you were doing all these other side hustles, like, you had the Madow Center, the Richards Report, you had the seminars, you were going to Vegas. Were you still practicing throughout all of these?
Well, I'm not sure I would call the Madow Center a side hustle, but,
I just wanted to say that word.
okay. That was when you're kind of like we're playing like podcast bingo and you have to say a certain word and check
Yeah.
off your square. Yeah,
Yeah.
but but it was a side hustle at the very beginning when all we did was sell the collection form. I mean, that was a true PO box, answering machine, pickup truck, kitchen table business. As that started to grow with the newsletter, seminars, our Vegas meeting, yes, it got to be too much. Again, I was, running a full-time dental practice. We had some associates. Dave and I were running this business that started as a side hustle, but really grew into something big. And I found that I owned two active businesses, both of which needed my attention. And then the business of helping other dentists and speaking at seminars, it just got to be a little more fun for me than treating patients. I did really enjoy dentistry while I did it, but I found that when I was treating patients, sometimes my mind was elsewhere. And after a while, you just know I've got to do the big move, the big, bold, gutsy, risky move, or else I could regret it the rest of my life. So I did manage to sell my practice and devoted my time to the Madow Center full time. That was sometime in the late 90s, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you find that, so while you were doing all these other endeavors, it was hard to focus on your practice and dentistry, and you were able to kind of make that jump where, I said side hustle, but you made it kind of your full hustle, where you sold your practice and you had all these other businesses to support yourself and kind of grow into. While you were doing these other things, you said that it was hard to focus on everything: dentistry, the patients, the practice, and do these other businesses. Did you find that?
And my family as well. I had had a young family at the time too. There was a lot going on.
Yeah, that is a lot going on. Although, personally, I find having something else going on other than the office such a great distraction, because I start during the Corona shutdown. I started the website, and then the podcast, blogging, and now I'm writing a book. So I have all these other things going on that I find personally to be a great distraction from the office. And I kind of do it, in my gaps, in the morning or in between patients. So I'm able to juggle it all. But if all I had was just the office, I think that, because I did go through some burnout, I think my burnout would have continued. So I think having other distractions other than just the office was really helpful for me. Mm-hmm. But yeah, sure. If you're finding that, your focus is not, on the patients and the office, then you're right. It was probably a good move that you ended up selling your office. So how did it work with Vegas? Did you have to rent out one of the venues there and then hope that, you would be able to fill the place up? And if not, you were in the hole. How does that work when you're
Oh my God. It's exactly what happened. I mean, this was just crazy. Again, we're being asked to speak at seminars all over the country. And it's funny. And Dave and I were learning about the marketing business and, and direct mail and all these things. And it's a whole different world that was out there. And it was mind blowing and it was fun. And it just really made your mind spin with all these creative ideas. So I remember one day we saw that there was this marketing direct mail seminar in Vegas, all the top names. I'm sure most people listening to this podcast won't recognize these names, but they were huge in this field. Ted Nicholas, Gary Halbert. I mean, just all these huge names, kind of like if you went to a dental seminar and every big name was speaking there. So we're sitting at this seminar in Vegas with these creative geniuses speaking on the stage. And it's so much fun. And, they're doing crazy videos and entrances and there's music. And we're thinking, what the heck? Dental seminars are no fun. This seminar is so much fun. We've got to create a dental seminar that's this much fun. And that was the impetus for TBSE. So we went back to Baltimore. and we were friends with all the big name dental speakers already, and just rented out a small room at the Baltimore Sheridan, which is about 3 blocks from where I live right now. At the time, I was living out in the suburbs. The room held 300 people, and we just kind of sent out a bunch of letters advertising the seminar and hope for the best. And it sold out in about 2 days. So we said, "Wow, there's something here." So we said, "Okay, we're this has potential. We're going to take it on the road. We're going to take it to Vegas." And we knew nothing. I mean, nothing. So we made a bunch of appointments in Vegas, flew out there, and learned that when you throw a seminar in Vegas, this is big time. As you said, you've got to not just rent out the space, but sign a contract. Here's how the Vegas seminars work. There's a huge hotel ballroom. Like at our peak, we had 3,000 people coming to the seminar. So this huge ballroom, I don't know, 20,000 square feet, something like that. So you know what the rent is for that ballroom? It's free. The ballroom is free because you've got to commit to filling all these hotel room nights, maybe 1,000 room nights, and you've got to commit to $200,000 in catering and all. These are like, I never talk about this stuff, but since you asked, and you're on the hook for these things. And then if for some reason you throw the seminar and people don't show up, you're cooked. And we were so lucky that never happened. We never had to pay a hotel any attrition clause or pay for room nights. But I'm very, very thankful about that because it's a big endeavor, throwing one of these major meetings in Vegas. It's very risky. It's extremely time consuming. We have full-time staff working on our Vegas seminar. So yeah, it's crazy, it's risky, it's time consuming, but it was so much fun. And the thing about our seminar, our Vegas seminar, was most dental seminars, they've got breakout rooms and, the hygienists go to this room, and we had one huge room and there were no full day courses. Every speaker just got 1 hour. So it was one speaker after the next, greatest hits, wow everybody. And we had speakers that just weren't dental speakers. We had celebrities and, motivational speakers, all those kinds of things. And in between, I would write these crazy dental song parodies and we'd perform and we'd have rock and roll lighting and sound. It was just nuts. And somehow, I don't even know how this started. People started dressing in costumes. So year after year, it was just nuts. There'd be 3,000 people in this room dressed in crazy costumes. It was just a bizarre time in dentistry. Unfortunately, the pandemic's put an end to these fun live dental meetings, but hoping they come back. But we finally retired TBSE after 25 years. It was just enough stress and strain and risk and all those things.
What does TBSC stand for?
Oh, that was the name of our seminar. And, at first it was called the Richards Report Super Fall Seminar after our newsletter, but a bunch of attendees got together and actually said they wanted to change the name to the best seminar ever, because that's how they felt about it. So, it sounds a little egotistical to call your own seminar the best seminar ever, but since the attendees actually changed the name to that, we went with it. And that's what it was known for most of its years.
Yeah, you get a pass for the name when the attendees are naming it. So, I've been to so many lectures, especially, up here in Massachusetts. It's like, academia up here, and the lectures are so tense and boring and all about research. And I'd be sitting there and like, I'm tense and I'm listening to, watching these amazing speakers showing these amazing cases on, backed on this amazing research, with their, their slides of this amazing work. And I'm sitting here like feeling bad about myself because I can't afford that equipment or to do that kind of treatment. And I feel like I'm doing inadequate work. So it was, and then I remember turning to the person next to me, like, can I borrow a pen? And it was, so that sounded like a really cool event that you were throwing, because, when you go to events, you want to have fun and you want to kind of get away from the office and, and have a good time. So hopefully those, I'm hoping that, those come back, and I'm there. Next time you have one, I'm there. It's, it's a great excuse.
We've totally retired our Vegas events, but okay. I'm still speaking all across North America. Obviously during the pandemic, that's come to a crashing halt, but my speaking schedule is already filling up for what we're hoping is post-pandemic. So I'll be speaking in a bunch of major meetings all across the country, hopefully the Yankee, because I've done that one a bunch of times. And I know that's in your backyard. That's a fantastic meeting. But I think what you said is so true. People go take a course and they leave feeling worse than when they walked in. And like, how's that helping anyone? And when I do my speaking gigs, I want the exact opposite feeling. I want people to feel uplifted, motivated, big smile on their face, but also with the feeling that I learned a bunch of things in this course and I know I can do them, or I know I can pick and choose 5 things I'm going to start doing in my practice next week, and it's going to work. And I know it's going to make me happier, make my revenues increase, make my team do a better job, give better patient care, all those things. So that's my promise. Come to one of my courses. That's what you'll learn.
That's awesome. So now you also have the Dental Practice Fixers podcast. Now, Dental Practice Fixers, does that mean like you're a fixer, like, you know, in The Godfather 2, when that senator, he's with that prostitute who ODs and they send in the consigliere to come and fix the situation? Or like the wolf in Pulp Fiction, the fixer? Is that what you do? You like come in and fix the problem?
Yes, if a dentist gets caught with like a dead prostitute in a hotel room, they call me. No,
Okay.
it's not that kind of
Awesome.
fixing. I haven't seen The Godfather 2 since it was actually in the movies. I've got to rewatch that. That was a great movie.
Oh, I own it. I watch it like at least once a week.
Oh, wow. So you can like quote every line from
it? Yeah. So I have this lame joke. So whenever, you know, when a patient, when I tell them we're going to get the first impression, you know, for their crown or something, I always throw out like a, you know, a Godfather impression, you know, just to break the ice. But
well, now you have to do it now. I mean, I think you kind of set yourself up here.
Oh yeah, Senator, you can have my answer now. The answer is this: nothing. Not even the price for the gaming license. That's one of the beginning scenes. So
I got to rewatch.
Yeah. I could.
So the dental practice. Oh, go ahead.
I could do those all day, but yeah, go ahead. So tell us about the Dental Practice Fixers podcast.
Yeah, I'm sorry to admit, my movie quotes usually come from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, so totally different end of the spectrum, but a great movie nonetheless.
Also, a great movie.
Yeah, that and Casablanca are my 2 favorite movies, I think. Dental Practice Fixers podcast concentrates on fixing the front desk telephone answering, because geez, I don't know if we're going to get to this today or not, but we might talk about dumb things that smart dentists do later on. And if we don't get to it, that's great, because I'm having so much fun just chatting with you. But one of the dumb things that smart dentists do is just kind of throw anyone with a pulse at the front desk with improper training. And we've got a fantastic clinical team. Our hygienists and our assistants are the best in the world. But what's the difference if a patient calls the office, a potential new patient calls the office and asks a typical question and then never gets put on the appointment book? So besides doing a variety of other topics, because we answer listener questions, and a lot of times I'll just go off on a little monologue for 10 minutes. One of the things we do in every episode of the Dental Practice Fixers podcast is mystery shopper calls. We'll call a random dental office asking a question that a typical new patient would ask. Do you take my insurance? How much is a cleaning? Tell me about your office, whatever. And then we analyze the calls to see if the person answering the phone in the dental practice did a good job. Did they actually get that fake patient off the phone and into the appointment book? Now, you've listened to the Dental Practice Fixers podcast a few times, right?
I actually listened to it this morning when I was on the Peloton, and I was cracking up. And is every dental office that you call in the South? Because it always sounds like they have a Southern accent. But I was also nervous because I was crapping my pants, because I'm like, wait, I don't know how my dental office would answer these questions. So do you want to give my office a call and see how they do? I'm actually really nervous about asking you to do this.
We're going to do a live secret shopper call?
If you can make it happen, that would be awesome. I'm so nervous right now, though.
Now, I'm not sure technologically how it's going to work. I can just hold my iPhone up to these AirPods and see what happens. Want to try?
Let's do it.
Okay. Now, there are a bunch of questions I ask on this. 2 that I did recently that I really liked, and you can tell me which one to do. One is just, hey, I'm new to the area. Can you tell me a little bit about your practice? And then another one that I just did last week, which I thought was great, was I just said, my teeth are having some sensitivity to cold and hot things. Can you make a recommendation for me? So which one do you want to do?
Let's do the I have sensitive teeth, and can you make a recommendation? Okay. And then maybe we could do the other one a little later at the end of the podcast.
Oh, sure. This is fun. Okay.
I'm so nervous right now.
I hope it works audio-wise. So let's see what happens. We'll try. Oh, Eric,
Okay,
Eric,
that
Eric.
was that was
That was
painful.
a hard fail. That was a hard fail.
Yeah. So
I mean,
let's
and
go
just
into
to reiterate too, I think the thing that we would want someone to do in that situation is just say the best thing to do is come on in, have the doctor take a look. And I don't know if you do this in your practice, but I would say we'll do a free consultation for you. Come in and you'll get to meet the doctor, and he or she can make a recommendation then based on what they see, because there's so many different things that cause sensitivity. Let's make sure we figure out what's going on here. So simple, isn't it?
oof, yeah, that was painful. So
Are
I
you
mean,
crapping
it's
in your pants?
I already did. I soiled myself already. So I think that phone training. I mean, now I'm tomorrow. I'm going to have some phone training, um, but just saying the words. How do we, can we get you in the office to take a look at this and get you in for a consultation? The doctor really needs to take a look at you. I mean, that's really what needs to be coming out of that
Right.
conversation, right?
And the craziest thing is she recommended what she believed to be a prescription product. Well, you can't just go to the pharmacy and get a prescription product. So,
Right.
so what she's saying is this person needs to see a dentist. And they called your office and she didn't
Yep.
offer an appointment. Woo, bad.
Yeah. Oof, that was bad. So
Busted.
let's,
Busted
yeah,
live.
busted. Yeah. So let's do one, towards the end of the podcast. But I wanted to ask you some more things. You had a great. I was listening to one of your other podcasts. You had a great series of dumb things smart dentists do. Can you go into some of those?
Sure. I'll do it really quickly. Now I've done I've done a webinar and I'm planning on doing a full or half day course on this. So we can go into a lot of detail, but I can just kind of offer you a listicle, if you like, of some dumb
That'd be
things that
great.
smart dentists do. Is
Let's do it.
listicle, is that the word? I wanted to say listicle, just like you wanted to say side hustle.
Check it off. You checked it off. That's
Okay.
good.
Have you ever seen I think it's called like convention bingo. It's the funniest thing. Now it's more for like business or motivational lectures than dental lectures, but everybody gets a bingo card. And on each square is like something that a typical motivational speaker would say, like, we've got to circle back to that, or, I don't know, all these typical cliches. And then as they say each one, you check it off and see who gets bingo first. So I don't think we're playing that here, but let's talk about some dumb things that smart dentists do. Okay, one dumb thing that smart dentists do, and we're all smart. I mean, let's face it. To be a dentist, you got to be pretty darn smart. You've got to, have a difficult major and get good grades, somehow make it through 4 years of misery known as dental school, and then come out to the real world where things really get tough, where you've got to be super smart and perceptive and all those things. So dentists are smart people, but we tend to do some really dumb things. I'll just give you a few. One dumb thing that smart dentists do, and this is from my experience as a dental practice coach, more than 50% of the time when people contact us and say, we'd like some help with our practice, they say, we need more new patients. We need more new patients. It's like a mantra. Like,
Mhm.
everybody's repeating. I can just picture like a big stadium and everybody saying, we need more new patients. And then, of course, we do our data analysis of the practice and find that they've got a back door that's open so wide, they could fill Gillette Stadium. Is it still called Gillette Stadium where the Patriots play?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
still Gillette. Yeah.
they
Yep.
could fill. That was a close shave as trying to go for that one. They could fill Gillette
You
Stadium.
nailed it. Yep.
Right. And the reason is that, yes, we do things to get new patients, but then I say it's like picture like this big bus of new patients pulls up in your office and they all got out and they're walking single file. They open the front door and everybody's all happy and they stop in the hygiene room and they stop in the treatment room. But 90% of them just keep walking all the way through the office and exit through the back door. And we find that practices have thousands of patients that have been through their doors that are not on the schedule, that have not been contacted maybe but not properly, to come back for their recall or recare or whatever the heck you want to call it. And if they just focused on getting these patients back in their chairs, new patients wouldn't be all that important to them. And I just could never do this with a practice because it wouldn't work for many reasons. But I've wanted to say to practices like something like, okay, for the month of April, we're not even allowing new patients in the office. Our job is just to get patients reactivated. You're under the gun now. Do whatever it takes to get these patients back in. We're not allowed to have new patients because they've got so many sitting in their charts. And that's like, I also call that the $1 million file cabinet. All the treatment that you've diagnosed and recommended and is just sitting there doing nothing, it's so much more important than new patients. Now, you need new patients, but not at the expense of neglecting your existing patients who haven't been in for a while.
It's such great advice. And, you get these new patients in, maybe you get one in and there's two leaving out the back door. Now, do you find when you're, coaching or consulting with an office that they come to you and they're like, I want growth, I want new patients. And then you actually get in there, you evaluate their systems, the data analysis, and you just totally change directions and just focus more on just tightening up the systems, not actually trying to grow and spend more money on marketing, but just tighten up the systems that you have, and their patients are there. You just haven't gotten them back into the system. Do you find that kind of, you have to pivot?
Well, you said, do you ever find? I'm going to change that and say, do you always find? I'm saying just about every time. I mean, some of the things we look at, I love this little chart that we do that shows month by month your patient flow. And it shows new patients or reactivated patients versus attrition patients. And we do like a line up for new and reactivated and a line down for attrition. Just about every case, the attrition is more than the new and the reactivated patients. So yes, we definitely concentrate on that. And then we look at things like production per visit, and how can we increase production per visit? Because some patients are coming in anyway, but your production per visit is lower than we'd like to see. So how can we get that better? What percentage of hygiene patients are coming back, and how can we get that better? So yeah, so many times it's cleaning up or creating the systems and protocols to work with what they already have. And that's a little scary, because people think when they, and many people have had bad experiences, when they contact a coach or consultant, they're going to come in and clean house, or they're going to come in and give me all this busy work, or make these systems and protocols that are impossible to follow, and I'm just going to get more frustrated. And in working with dentists for so many years and being a dentist myself, it's always best to simplify things. Mm-hmm. And to develop systems and protocols with the team, not coming in saying, this is how we do it, this is the Madow Center method. No, we do it together. We develop the systems and protocols. But yeah, what you said is so true. A lot of times it's a pivot, just looking at things differently, just saying, what can we do to improve this? Our value of each patient is too low. How can we increase? And looking at all those things, all those systems and protocols. So yeah, the good news is many practices already have the infrastructure to succeed. They just need to know how to work better. And it's a cliche. This will be one of the things in like motivational seminar bingo, or bullshit bingo, as some people call it. They need to work smarter, not harder. And I hate saying it because it's such an overused cliche, but it's so true. The solution is not working harder. It's doing what you do better.
That's such a good point. And it's so different. Every dentist is different. Their goals are different. Their office is different. If you have a new scratch office, their needs are different than an office like mine that's been around for 40 years. So, do you kind of get in there? Do you have your own software that you use, or do you recommend a specific software to analyze the data?
Well, we partner with Dental Intelligence to do our data analysis. So it's a great platform. And when we work with a practice, we include that at no charge, but that's our favorite.
And then do you just kind of customize it for each office? It's not like a cookie cutter thing. You're talking with the dentist, the team, and figuring out for that particular office, how do we fix these systems?
So correct. And that's one of the things, and look, I'm not here to brag on the Madow Center, but since you asked, that's one of the things that differentiates us from, I think, all the other coaches and consultants out there. When I had my practice, I used, I think, 4 or 5 different consulting companies. And I got to say, I learned something from every single one of them. You definitely, unless it's a complete disaster of a company, you will definitely learn great things no matter who you work with. But I found that with every consultant I used, they come in and say, this is our way of doing it. So, let's just say ABC coach, in ABC consulting, this is what we talk about the first month, and this is the second, and this is the third, and this is our way of doing it. But we don't do it that way. We have no pre-prescribed modules or phases. We don't have a video library and say, everybody watch video number 1. It's not the way we do it. We learn about the practice. So the very first step when we work with a practice is to do the data analysis. But then the second step, after we discuss that with the dentist, is one of our coaches actually comes into the practice and stays there for 2 days and watches everything while they're treating patients and sees what makes them tick and looks at what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are. She'll interview different team members and the doctor, and then just based on that, come up with a custom plan just for that practice. Because like you said, you've got a 40-year-old practice in a huge major metropolitan area that's, Boston's known for, dense population, high cost of living, all those great things. Well, you go out to the plains and there's a dental office where there's not another dental office within 30 miles. And that office is going to be completely different than yours, or a startup versus a veteran practice. So that's why we customize everything for each practice. No
Okay.
modules, no phases, no cookie cutters.
Yeah, I think what you said, personally, you had consultants over the years, and you do pick up, some, a few things, hopefully more than a few things, because typically they're you're paying a lot of money, but you'll pick up different tips and ways to improve your systems with every consultant. And I think it's good for dentists to invest in that every 5 to 10 years, get a consultant to come in and kind of reinvent yourself. And so what else? Tell me more about some other dumb things smart dentists do. Let's continue on
Sure.
with that.
I love this topic. Well, one, I'll just talk about this for 30 seconds because we already discussed it with our secret shopper calls, is they throw an untrained person at the front desk. So we already discussed that enough, but that's one dumb thing. Here's another dumb thing that smart dentists do. They think that, and you mentioned this in a different way when you talk about some of the seminars that you sit through. Dentists tend to think that purchasing an expensive piece of technology will make everything better. And I'm not a Luddite. I have nothing against technology. I know cone beams are incredible. The images are amazing. If you're, CEREC, it's really cool that you can do a crown same day. But unfortunately, these technologies are very expensive, and they are marketed by extremely expert salespeople who will convince you that buying this piece of six-figure technology will grow your practice. And I'm telling you, it will not. I don't care what the technology is. It will not grow your practice. Could it possibly give you better images? Yes. Could it make your life easier? Yes. But it will not grow your practice. And then, it's just really sad, but a lot of times a dentist will contact us and say, we need some help with our practice. And we'll look at their data and their finances and find that they are paying a huge monthly amount on this piece of technology that's either not helping to grow their practice or, even worse, sitting in the closet. So again, I have nothing against technologies, but here's something I'll tell you. I will only get that crown done, doctor, if you can do it in one appointment. Said no patient ever, right? It just doesn't happen. So technology is great, but it's not going to be the thing that saves or grows your practice.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. If it's something that you're gonna use, and it's gonna be part of your office, and you're gonna use it every day, and it makes you happy using it, go for it. But if it's just gonna sit there, and you think just by buying that CAD cam or that CBCT or that laser that it's just gonna magically bring patients in, it's not. And that salesman, they're gonna try to do whatever it takes to sell that piece of equipment. They're going to break it down into monthly payments. They're going to make it seem, a lot more affordable or better ROI than it may be. So yes, be very careful, especially young dentists that have a lot of loans and debt. And but if you're going to use it and you find that it's going to help your practice, and make going into work more enjoyable every day, go for it, but you got to use it, because it's not going to magically bring patients in on its own. I think that's such great advice there. All right, let's go for one more.
Oh,
Dumb thing
geez.
smart dentists do.
What? I'm looking at my list here. I want to talk about all of them. How about if I do just a couple really fast?
Sure.
Okay. One is, it's an old Southern expression. I'm not really from the South. Maryland's like kind of in the middle of the North. And you probably consider us Southerners because you're from Boston, but the Southerners consider us Northerners. But there's a Southern expression that I love. And they say, dance with who brung ya. And so many dentists get distracted, like they want to open up some side business or satellite practice or treat these esoteric problems that very few patients have. But what brung ya most of the time for a dentist is one practice, not 10 different locations, but one really good practice doing dentistry that people need. Things such as endo, core, and crown, scaling and root planing, implants, even if you don't do the implants, but restoring implants, the services that people need, not these esoteric treatments that, 1 out of 10,000 people need, but having, and then they say, well, I'm going to open up a satellite practice. It like rotates around the sun. And then you've got double the overhead. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
So dance with who brung you. Doing bread and butter procedures in one location is what most dentists need to do to succeed. And then, they'll get involved in, I'm going to invest in my cousin's brewery. And then my friend's selling this, $80 bottle of hand lotion that doesn't work. And if I could just get 5 people to sign up and they get 5 and they get 5, it's all too distracting. Dance with who brung you.
The golden goose, baby. That's,
Yep.
your bread and butter dentistry. Don't forget where you got, crowns, fillings. I do a lot of implants, removable. That's my bread and butter. I practice 4 days a week, and I've some other things going on, but I know where my golden goose is. And
I'll give you one more dumb thing if you don't mind.
Go for it.
That is, doctors try to sell dentistry, and they'll take these courses, how to sell dentistry, and these people on stage wearing like the loud plaid jackets. Now here's how you do it. And if the patient says this, you come back with that. And if they say this, here's your retort to that. And then finally, you look them right in the eye and say, is there any reason that you don't want to have this kind of dentistry in your mouth? You can't sell dentistry. The deal is you need to establish a relationship with your patients where they trust you, where they like you, where they have confidence in you. And when they're ready to get the treatment done, they're going to get it done in your office instead of having some kind of high pressure sales technique where every now and then somebody will say yes, but the other 80% or 90% of the time they run away kicking and screaming. Dentistry is not something that can be sold. It's something that needs to be earned by getting your patients' trust and confidence. It's a long game, as you might say. It's not the short game, it's the long game.
It's the long game, because they may not do that crown this year, but maybe next year or the year after. Just be nice to them. Treat them like you would want to be treated. It's because personally, I hate being sold to. I had a salesman call me the other day, and he had this great product that he wanted to sell me. It's like I had sucker on a Post-it on my forehead, and I was like, "Am I in candid camera here?" And tell me about this great product, but he just needs $10,000 and he just doesn't know who to get it from. He was one of the reps from a dental business, but he had this other side sales gig going on. I'm like, do I look like a total sucker? So I just personally, I don't like being sold to, and a lot of patients, probably feel that way as well. So I think that's awesome advice. Going back to your last dumb thing that smart dentists do you find that they just overextend themselves? Like they're trying to, instead of just having one large practice with one staff, that they're trying to, like you said, make that satellite office or that sister office and have 2 or 3. And it just makes things so much more complicated. Now you have 2 or 3 overheads, 2 or 3 staff teams, and it just would have been so much more simple to have just one large practice.
Well, I was talking to a dentist just 3 days ago. I was on a Zoom with this dentist and one of our fantastic coaches, and it was our first call. A really nice guy. And, as a start, after we did a little personal chit chat, which is something you should always do with your patients too, before you start the examination or whatever, a little personal chit chat. And then I said, well, tell me a little bit about your practice. And he said, well, I'm embarrassed to say it's a pretty simple setup. It's just me, one hygienist, one dental assistant, one full-time person at the front desk, and then a part-time who helps out. And he was like all embarrassed about it. He said, don't be embarrassed about that. I know a dentist in South Florida who has one assistant, one hygienist, and one front desk person, and he personally nets $1 million a year. So you can do it. Now that's unusual, but you can have a fantastic practice in one location with 4, 5, 6 chairs, a small staff, and be happy and not be overburdened by overhead and make a fantastic living. The satellite practice thing really irks me because we all know dentists who have done really well opening up multiple locations. But the more I talk to dentists over decades, that's the rarity. Most dentists that open up a second location wind up regretting it. They're doubling their overhead, doubling their staff headaches. They can't be in both places at once. They've got a revolving door of associates who aren't interested, and it's just a burden. And they'd be much better off focusing all their efforts on one main practice. And then they say, well, I can't expand. There's a barber shop on one side of me and a dry cleaners on the other, and the landlord won't let me expand. Well, you know what? That's when maybe you start thinking about moving locations, and that's scary. But if you're going to invest in something, I like investing in your one practice much better.
Yeah. I think that's great. When I was associating, and I was looking into either partnering up at the office that I'm a partner now, or kind of doing my own thing and buying my own office. And I kept telling my dental broker, and I always recommend having a specialized, specific dental broker or someone that specializes in dentistry to help you out. And other things as well, like have a, dental specific CPA and lawyer. But this dental broker who's very experienced, he said, I was looking for this, golden practice in, Newton, Brookline, that's really high end practice. And he's like, why? Why do you want to do that to yourself with that overhead? Why don't you look in, some more blue collar towns with some smaller practices with small overhead? Because the dentists that end up going there love it because they can have a small overhead. The clientele is much nicer than some of these boutique offices, kind of a high stress clientele. He's like, you're gonna love working in more of a blue collar town with a smaller overhead and with a lot of potential for growth. So it's something to be said for for that type of practice.
I totally agree. It's funny that the towns that you mentioned, my dad's from Boston, so I'm familiar with some of those suburbs. And yeah, you just named all the ritzy suburbs.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing with my practice. I was not, in a blue collar town. I was in a very middle of the road town. And I had some patients, a handful who were very wealthy, just a handful. I had many who, didn't have two nickels to rub together, and we helped them the best we could. But most of my patients were regular, great people. I just had, teachers and people who worked in at our big BWI airport, because I was close to there. Some military people and military retirees, just great down to earth people. And, it was a pleasure treating them. And it sounds like you have a similar practice.
Yeah, we have a good mix here. It's it's a community that's all about the schools, and there's a really good mix of people. People are generally nice, and I found that the closer you got to Boston with some of those ritzy towns, the harder and more stressful the clientele became, more demanding they were. And kind of the further away you got out, the nicer people got. Every once in a while you get a difficult patient, but for the most part, most people where I am are very nice. All right. So do you want to do one more phone call, mystery shopper call to my office?
Okay, I'll do it. How about if I just do the old tell me? But if the same person answers, she's going to know it's me.
You're going to have to change up your voice a little bit.
Okay, I'll talk like this. I'm not going to do accents because I'm horrible at accents. Then I always wind up offending someone. I can do my dad's Boston accent, right? Richard.
Yeah, they'll see right through that one here. But
exactly.
So let's do do you take my insurance? Because we just went out of network with a bunch of insurances like MetLife. Do you want to do that one?
Sure. So I'll just ask, do you take MetLife?
Yeah. Or how about this? I think I need a crown. Do you take my insurance? Yeah. And if they ask, I have MetLife.
I go, wow. The question comes up, what should somebody say if you're out of network?
Yeah.
That's it. Yep. And I'm not sure how you handle that. There's a phrase that I really like, but let's face it, getting a patient out of network to come to your practice is tough. And I think no matter what you do, you're going to lose most of these people.
Mm-hmm.
But but I'm not saying that she did a nice job with that call, because she didn't. She did a horrible job. Um,
Yep. Agreed.
I I think you need to let the person know that even though you're out of network, they still can come to you. And why don't they come on in and meet the doctor, and you'll work with their insurance to get them reimbursed, even though they have to pay your fees. And there's a phrase that I like, and that's called an unrestricted provider. And that means,
Hmm.
and that's what you are. You're an unrestricted provider, meaning that you can see this patient even though you're not in network with them, and then you can help them get reimbursed from their insurance, and even give them estimates before you do anything. Let them know what the fee is, how much you expect their insurance will reimburse them, and even though that's between them and the insurance company, they are still welcome in your practice. Why don't you come on in and meet Dr. Eric? You'll love him. And you can even say, we don't accept the discounted dental plans because we like to give our patients our full attention and best quality treatment, whatever. Play it up a little bit. Make it a positive that you're not in network, and come on in to meet our fantastic doctor. He even does a podcast. That's how cool he is. So it's a tough battle, but there are things you can say to at least get, because
Yep.
remember, you're in metropolitan Boston. There are probably more dentists than people there, and for some reason, this person picked up the phone and called your phone number, your practice, and they deserve your best effort to get them in the door.
Yep, it's so true. I mean, it sounds like we need some major phone training here, but you work so hard to market your office, get these great reviews and marketing, and then that you get the patient to finally make that phone call, and then it just becomes a dead end there. So, that was painful.
I just want to say, Eric, I'm going to give you a new award. We'll call it the Dental Guts Award. To have somebody mystery shop your own office live on a podcast, you are the winner of the first annual Dental Guts Award.
Woo! Yeah, because I was saying, I was listening to your podcast, and I was cracking up over some of the calls, and at the same moment, I was like, wait a second, this could be my office too, and so this has been an eye-opening experience here. So, Rich Madow, thank you so much for joining us. Again, you can go to Deals for Dentists, and you can find a free downloadable book, The Profitable Dental Scheduling. So, Rich, thanks so much for joining us. And I always ask, do you want to leave with any last nuggets for those young dentists out there that may be stressed out, that may be going through some burnout? Any nuggets or words of wisdom for them?
Wow. We could do another. I actually wrote an entire book on stress reduction, as you may know. So we could do an hour-long podcast on that. But I'll just do a couple. We get so stressed out, but I think when you're really stressed out about something, it's a good time to take a deep breath and just think, this thing that's stressing me out so much, that's bothering me so much, will it matter 5 days from now? Will it matter 5 weeks from now? Will it matter 5 months from now? A year from now? And the answer is always no. And you're going to find out that most things don't really matter all that much. A patient does something stupid that pisses you off, or an insurance company or whatever. Most of it is just small potatoes compared to the really important things in life. And maybe a more important lesson is that so many dentists that I've met have what I call a negative happiness equation, where they don't enjoy the practice of dentistry, and they put in that time kind of like they're going to prison to earn money so they can have fun on the weekends. And TGIF, I'm gonna have a horrible time all week so I can have fun on the weekends with the money that I've earned. It doesn't work that way, and pretty soon you're just miserable during the week and during the weekend. So we could do again a whole different podcast on that, but you've got to do whatever it takes to make it so you enjoy your work. And there's no amount of money that will make it worth you being miserable at work every day. So it's not all about the money. Take the steps to make your practice pleasant and enjoyable. A lot of it involves your team, the people you spend every day with. You've got to have a great team of fantastic, optimistic, motivated, enthusiastic people who share your energy and your positivity, or else they're going to just bring you right down with them. So don't have the negative happiness equation.
Oh, I love that. That was a great way to put that, because when you're young and you're hungry, maybe you can do that. You can work and kind of power through, to get to the weekend. But ultimately you're gonna end up burned out, and it's gonna bite you. And you can't practice for 40 years like that. You got to go into work happy. Work with people you enjoy working with. If you're not happy because of a certain staff member, then you got to move on from them. You don't want to go into work trying to, avoid someone or dreading, like you said, the Sunday night blues. So, be happy. And, that's such great advice. So Rich, thanks so much for joining us. I think we could do another 2 or 3 episodes on some of these subjects.
I would love to. I'll just throw in our website really quick in case anybody wants to give us a visit. It's madow.com, M-A-D-O-W, 1D, M-A-D-O-W.com. And as you said, we've got our free downloadable book on your site on Deals for Dentists. It's Profitable Dental Scheduling. And it deals with a lot of the things we talked about today, how to make those new patients actually get off the phone and into the appointment book. So we'd love to treat you to that. Thanks so much for having me.